Yeah, welcome back to Sunday Supplement and welcome back to Miguel Delaney, Charlotte Dunker and Jonathan Liu. Let's go to the back page of The Sun. I think we've seen this headline before, haven't we? Gonna be our year. Tougher Timbers title talk. Miguel, are they equipped to take that final step instead of being thereabouts to being there?
I think so. I think they're really... I mean, look, they've been brilliant for 3 years. I know that 3 years has seen a lot of debate about Arteta, whether he's a winner in all this, whether he's a good manager, but one that can't get them quite over the line. I think they've been a little bit unfortunate over that period. I mean, they got 89 points in 22-23. Arteta is the only manager in the Premier League history to have had an 89-point season and not also won the league at some other point. But I think that speaks to how difficult it was. They were up against City, and not all that project is at its most imperious. Last season, I think you could say, was the big opportunity because City obviously had their crisis. But from speaking to people at Arsenal, I think they do see what happened last season as explainable. There were some issues in the squad they didn't resolve. But most of all, they suddenly had these injury clusters that they didn't have in the previous 2 seasons. And as Arsenal put it, for all the debate about kind of, you know, the style and the approach, and whether they're aggressive, whether they became a set-piece team, if you look, say, I mean, they scored, 91 goals in 23-24 when they had all of their best players available. So the issue is really, it wasn't their top level, which is good. We've seen that, say, when they destroyed City last season 5-1, in some big performances over the past. Like, again, Arteta was mocked for the comments about how they were the best team in Europe after the Paris Saint-Germain game. But he genuinely feels that their top level is title level. The issue is sustaining it. And what they've done this summer is they've got a lot of depth. They've solved issues. So suddenly, they're not going to be as reliant, say, on Odegaard or Saka. I think they will use Havertz a lot still because Arteta loves the way he gets their pressing approach. But now they've got that alternative in Gyökeres. The one question, I suppose, is, because I think they're at that level, is whether they've solved the issues that they had for last season, but now whether the dial has moved again, because, you know, as even speaking to people within Arsenal, the mood in the Premier League is that Liverpool have just gone out and did what no one actually expected in the market. They've signed game changers, especially if they get Isak, and that has possibly changed things. And then, of course, I mean, we'll get on to this, but the other great uncertainty, which is what City will do, well, they looked very strong yesterday.
I don't think it's Arsenal's top level that's necessarily in question, because, like Miguel said, we all know what they can do. It's being one of those teams that consistently grind out results, even when they've not been playing that well, even when everything's gone against them. You've lost some of your best players to injury who can step up and fill that void. And I think the signings that they've made this summer, if you look at each of the positions where they have upgraded in each of those positions. So like you said, they're not reliant on the same 11 each week. And that should be the difference to maybe help them, because they dropped a lot of vital points last season at times where they should have been able to get over the line, even if they were playing at 75%, which is what champions do. If you look at Liverpool towards the back end of last season, they actually didn't play that great, but they were still winning. And I think that could be the difference we see with Arsenal this season.
Jonathan, everyone thinks Arsenal will win. Not today. That's according to Ruben Amorim. Is he right to have that confidence? That's in the Sunday Mirror.
Yeah, I think Arsenal are probably slight favourites. I mean, they don't have a great record at Old Trafford, if I remember rightly. And I think, you know, there are always so many unknowns in the first weekend of the season in terms of how teams are going to line up, how their styles are going to match up, how quickly new signings are going to gel, new systems. I have to say, I do find this framing of Arsenal's season, this kind of now or never. It's now or never for Arteta. Everything's on this season. I do find it quite strange. I mean, not surprising, to be honest, because it does, I think, play into this narrative, I think, that comes from a lot of Arsenal fans and I think from the media as well, of this kind of fatalism that Arsenal are basically set up to fail every season, which is not to say that they should be that they should be happy with finishing second 3 seasons in a row, but it's not like, you know, they have a squad that's over the hill. It's, you know, it's not like they have a coach that is losing his touch. You know, it doesn't. I think it's a paradox in sport that the best way of getting the outcome that you want is not to fixate on the outcome. And I think for Arsenal this season, you know, this whole framing of now or never is actually going to be counterproductive.
I do agree with that, but I do think there is also this, and this is what you're saying about being counterproductive. There is an element with teams who have been together, no matter their age, but for quite a while, and they're always just on the brink of getting there, and they don't get there. Suddenly, when you face that bit of difficulty, that's when things can start to tailspin. There's two relatively recent examples in the Premier League. One was Rafa Benitez's Liverpool. In 08-09, in that run-in, they were absolutely brilliant. They were up against, Ferguson's United. And then the next season, it was a total collapse. And, Rafa was gone by the end of the season. Another similar one, I suppose, is Spurs, actually. For 3 years, they were superb. It was similar to some of the stuff that actually Arteta's been coming out with the last few days. I mean, their points total, say, over 2 years at Spurs in 16-17 and 17-18 was the best in England. It was 15-16 and 16-17. It was just, they couldn't get over the line.
But Spurs, that Spurs team ended up getting broken up and picked off, and Liverpool lost Alonso. That the defence was ageing. It needed a rebuild. This Arsenal team, it's still a young team. They can keep the core of this squad together for another 2 or 3 years. And
to be fair, one thing that should be pointed out there, they've done really well this summer in terms of contracts, because there was a bit of anxiety this in the last year about how that was building and the questions about, because now you have to commit to bigger wages because they're there. But it just, I suppose, allied to the point, I think there has been this emotion around Arsenal, both outside and some of the debate they provoke, and within the club or within the stadium, because obviously they're feeling the angst of now going, 21 years, or 20, it's going to be 22 years at least, without a title, I think, which is the longest they've ever been, ever since they won their first title. And then as that builds up, it does become this power all of its own.